some of the challenges to naturalization. So in the Asian or API community, the majority of foreign-born Asians are naturalized citizens compared to foreign-born Latinos. Citizen applications declined 62% just last fiscal year, and that's mainly due to the increased cost of citizenship applications. So before, it used to cost $400, and now it costs $675 to become naturalized. So that's, of course, I mean, with this economic crisis that it, again, disproportionately impacts the low-income immigrant community, we've seen that they're just impossible to come up with that number. And locally, 1 of every 2 citizenship applicants don't complete the process, even though they go through the 10 pages of the application, and even though that they take the picture, they go through the whole process, but they're unable to come up with $675. They have to make the very harsh decision of saying, it's either I become naturalized, or I'm going to pay food, I'm going to pay rent, I'm going to pay my bills, right? So it's an issue that has impacted disproportionately the API community. And so I wanted to talk about seniors. It's very difficult for seniors to be able to become naturalized because of their limited English, or their inability to learn English at the level that's required for them to pass the interview process. So we're seeing that, even when you do become, legal permanent resident, and even when you try to, become naturalized citizen, even then you still have all these obstacles that really make it very difficult for the immigrant community to become civically involved. So what's the solution? So we think that it's not the solution to all the problems, but it's definitely the first step to helping the community. It's passing comprehensive immigration reform. And by comprehensive immigration reform, I'm not talking about just a path to legalization for the undocumented immigrant. We're talking about a packet that is going to address a lot of the issues that I talked about. So reforming the current family-based visa system, we're talking about let's make it more efficient, let's get rid of, let's actually change some of the policies to make to me at least, my siblings or my mom, my children are my immediate relatives, but to the immigration, or in the current immigration system that we have, they're not considered immediate. For example, if you're a legal permanent resident and you want to petition for your children, they're not, and they're like 21 years old, or or your spouses, they're not considered your immediate relatives. So that's what creates the visa backlogs. Creating a path to legalization, like I mentioned, for the undocumented population. A comprehensive immigration reform that protects workers' rights, and that also increases the availability of resources to help immigrants integrate and naturalize. So again, like addressing all these issues and not only talking about a path to legalization. And there's current legislation right now that's happening. Just last December, Congressman Luis Gutierrez from Illinois introduced CIR ASAP, or Comprehensive Immigration Reform, for American Security and Prosperity Act of 2009. So that was introduced just this past December, and it's one of the most progressive bills that's in place and that has been introduced in the House. And it's something that SARN is currently supporting, and we're saying this is a really good start, and it sets a really high standard for us to begin that debate over immigration reform. It addresses the visa backlogs, it creates a path to legalization, it also creates, it has a lot of really good provisions for workers' rights, and also the Reunited Families Act that was introduced in the House by Congressman Mike Honda, and I want to also acknowledge that Mike is here representing. Also, the DREAM Act that would allow undocumented students. We have 65,000 undocumented students sort of every year graduating from high school and having a really hard time to go to college, and I'm running out of time, so so we can go to the next slide. So what you can do, so reform immigration for Asian Americans, or reform immigration for immigrants, just in general. Current challenges, again, healthcare reform. It has given opportunity for the anti-immigrant movement to sort of mobilize. So we're seeing that they're really vocal about excluding immigrants from healthcare reform. They're already sort of geared up for comprehensive immigration reform. The economic crisis, it's definitely a challenge for us, but we're talking about immigration reform as also a tool to stimulate the economy. There was a study that came out about a month ago that said if we were to pass immigration reform this year, in 10 years we would be generating $1.5 trillion just because of legalizing the undocumented population. Again, Massachusetts elections, so we lost one vote, and the Republicans now have the power of the filibuster, so that's also an issue that we are facing right now. Primary elections are coming up pretty soon, and immigration reform, unfortunately, is a very contentious issue, very, wedge issue, and a lot of our so-called, let's see how do I do this, so-called champions or pro-immigrant congressional leaders are sort of taking a step back, and they're a little scared of taking this issue. So the window of opportunity is closing now, but we're really, really geared up and trying to make it happen in the next couple of weeks. So what you can do to help, become an advocate for your community, join Sirens Rapid Response Network. Also join the national campaign Reform Immigration for America. If you go to the website or if you Google reformimmigrationforamerica.org, it's a national movement. We have a national campaign. We're working really hard. We have people in DC and I think it's over 700 organizations that have signed on to the campaign nationwide. Also, you can text the word justice to 69866 and you'll get policy updates. You also get updates if there's an action that's happening locally. You also get a text, and you are going to be asked to please help and join either the actions or call your senators, call your congressional leaders to make sure that immigration reform happens this year. You won't get too many texts, so don't feel scared. You'll probably get 2 or 3 texts a month, depending on what's going on in the Capitol Hill. And of course, call your Congress representative. Every call counts, and just be very vocal for your community. And I wanted to just talk really briefly. We have Efrain and Gloria who are going to be passing out a little more information about an action that's going to be coming up. And March 21st, there's going to be a massive mobilization in Washington, D.C. We're expecting about 100,000 people in D.C., but there's also going to be, we're giving the local community the opportunity to also become involved, and there's going to be a local action. So if you guys are all interested, you can, please, we ask that you support us. And of course, you can always just contact me if you have any further questions.